You open your eyes, and the first thing you check is not the ceiling, it is the clock. 4:47 a.m. The red digits on the bedside display cut through the dark with the specific authority of a number that means something. Not an alarm. You woke before the alarm, which you always do on launch days, which is why you stopped setting it 3 years ago. Your body has learned, across 14 launches and 2 scrubs and 1 abort at T-4 seconds, that left you standing at your console with your hand still on a button, that launch days begin before they begin. The nervous system does not wait for permission. You sit up. The hotel room in Cape Canaveral is identical to the hotel room you stayed in for the last launch, and the one before that. You stop noticing hotel rooms around launch number 6. What you notice instead, before the light is even on, is the weather. You go to the window. The Florida sky is still dark, but you can read darkness. The stars are visible, which means the cloud ceiling is high. There is wind, but not the kind that matters yet. You open the weather app not to check the weather, but to confirm the weather, because the reading you trust most is the one you took with your own eyes 30 seconds ago, and the app is a second opinion. And even at 4:47 in the morning of a launch day, you are someone who prefers their own observation to anyone else's report. The app confirms. The app always confirms or denies what you already sensed, and you have learned to pay attention to the occasions when it denies. Today, it confirms. You are the launch director for a Falcon 9 mission, carrying 60 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit. The vehicle is on the pad at Space Launch Complex 40. It has been there for 3 days. The propellant loading sequence will begin in approximately 2 hours. In 7 hours and 14 minutes, if everything proceeds nominally, and your entire professional existence is organized around the deeply humbling fact that everything proceeding nominally is a goal, not a guarantee, a 9-engine, 549,000-kilogram rocket will ignite and climb off the surface of the Earth at a speed that will take it from 0 to 27,000 kilometers per hour in approximately 8.5 minutes. Your job is to get it there safely, or to stop it from going if safe is not what it will be. You dress in the dark, not from habit but from preference, because the act of not turning on the light is a small assertion of control in a morning that will increasingly belong to systems and checklists and other people's voices in your headset. You eat nothing. You will eat after. You have learned not to eat before a launch, not because of superstition, but because you have sat at that console long enough to know that the particular quality of your attention is different on an empty stomach. Sharper, less comfortable. You prefer it that way. The drive to the launch facility takes 11 minutes. You drive yourself, another small assertion of control. The Launch Control Center is already alive when you arrive. The firing room is a long room of consoles, arranged in tiered rows, facing a bank of screens showing the vehicle in real time. Falcon 9, vertical on the pad, bathed in the white light of the launch mount, surrounded by the thin steam of ambient propellant that has been venting since the pad team began their overnight operations. On the main screen, the vehicle looks impossibly slender for something that will soon do what it is about to do. 60 meters tall, a diameter of 3.7 meters, the ratio of height to width means that if you scaled Falcon 9 to human proportions, it would be a person standing on a dinner plate. The engineering that makes this possible, that keeps this structure intact under the aerodynamic loads of ascent, that manages the sloshing of 500,000 liters of liquid oxygen and RP-1 fuel while the vehicle accelerates through max Q. The point of maximum dynamic pressure at approximately 80 kilometers altitude, where atmospheric drag and vehicle speed combine to place the highest structural loads on the airframe. But it is, on mornings like this, close enough. You take your seat at the Launch Director console. Your flight director and the NASA launch manager are already in their positions. The Mission Flight Control Officer at Johnson Space Center in Houston is on the loop. The Range Safety Officer is active. You put on your headset. The net comes alive around you. Dozens of voices, terse and technical, a language of acronyms and call signs and go-no-go calls that you have been speaking for 11 years, and that still, on mornings like this one, gives you a sensation you cannot fully describe and have stopped trying to. The countdown clock reads T-3 hours, 22 minutes. You work through the morning methodically. Not quickly. Quickly is not the goal. Correctly is the goal. Every item on the launch conductor's checklist exists because something somewhere in the history of rocketry went wrong in its absence. The checklist is not bureaucracy. The checklist is the accumulated memory of every failure that preceded you. You treat it accordingly. Propellant loading begins. Liquid oxygen, LOX, at minus 183 degrees Celsius, begins flowing into the vehicle's tanks through a process called densified propellant loading, a SpaceX innovation that chills the propellant below its standard boiling point to increase its density, allowing more mass of propellant to fit into the same tank volume and increasing the performance of the vehicle. The tank farm at SLC-40 holds the propellant in a cryogenic storage system that has been conditioning overnight. As the LOX flows, the vehicle, which is at ambient temperature, begins to contract slightly as the cryogenic propellant chills the tank structures, and engineers monitoring the vehicle's structural sensors watch for any readings outside the nominal range. Everything reads nominal. At T-minus 45 minutes, you conduct the launch director's poll. One by one, the system controllers around the firing room are called and respond with their status. Propulsion, go. Structures, go. Avionics, go. Ground systems, go. Range, go. Recovery, go. The booster will attempt a propulsive return landing today on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You, positioned approximately 630 kilometers downrange in the Atlantic Ocean. Recovery is go. Each go is not a formality. Each go is a professional certification, an assertion that the system that person is responsible for is performing within its defined limits and ready to support the next phase of the count. You listen to each one. You always listen to each one. At T-minus 35 minutes, a caution comes in from propulsion. A sensor on the second stage liquid oxygen pre-valve is reading a slightly elevated temperature, within the defined warning threshold, but trending upward. The propulsion engineer flags it. You acknowledge it. In a different era of spaceflight, in the era of Challenger, in January 1986, when pressure to launch overcame evidence of a temperature anomaly on the O-rings of the right solid rocket booster, a reading like this might have been rationalized away. You do not rationalize readings. You examine them. You ask for the historical data on this sensor across previous missions. The data comes back. The reading is consistent with a known behavior in this sensor family during densified propellant loading in ambient temperatures above 68 degrees Fahrenheit. It is currently 71 degrees. The trend is stable. The propulsion engineer assesses, acceptable for continue. You take a moment. This is not a theatrical moment. You are not performing deliberation for anyone in the room. You are actually deliberating, which takes approximately 45 seconds, during which the firing room is quieter than it was. You assess, continue. The count continues. T-minus 16 minutes. The terminal count begins. The automated launch sequencer, a software system that in the final minutes takes over execution of the countdown with a precision no human team could match, is armed. From this point, the sequence will proceed autonomously unless you or the range safety officer issue a hold command. The launch conductor confirms each step with the sequencer. The vehicle is fully loaded. The strongback, the structure that has supported Falcon 9 in its vertical position on the pad, begins its retract sequence, pulling away from the vehicle and leaving it standing alone. From the camera feed on the main screen, the moment the strongback retracts is always for you, the moment the launch becomes real. Before that moment, the vehicle is still connected to the ground by something tangible. After it, the vehicle is alone on its mount, ready. T-minus 7 minutes. The vehicle transfers to internal power. T-minus 3 minutes. The flight computer transitions to launch mode. T-minus 1 minute. The pad clear verification is confirmed. T-minus 45 seconds. Falcon 9 transitions to internal helium pressurization. T-minus 20 seconds. The launch director, U, gives final go for launch. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7. The Merlin engines ignite at T-minus 3 seconds, not T0, in a staggered sequence that allows the flight computer to verify all 9 engines have reached nominal thrust before the hold-down clamps release. In the firing room, the engine ignition produces a sound you have heard 14 times, and that your body still responds to, as though it is the first. A low rumble that begins below the range of hearing, and builds through the floor and the walls and the air until it is no longer a sound, but a presence, a physical fact of enormous energetic release that you are participating in from 4.5 kilometers away. T0. The hold-down clamps release. Falcon 9 begins to climb. In the first seconds, the vehicle appears to move slowly. This is a perceptual artifact of scale, because a 500,000 kilogram object does not accelerate instantaneously, even under 7.6 million newtons of thrust from 9 Merlin engines. But the slowness is an illusion. By the time Falcon 9 clears the launch tower, a process that takes approximately 6 seconds, it is already moving at over 100 kilometers per hour and accelerating. Max Q will come at T plus 80 seconds. Main engine cutoff, MECO, at T plus 2 minutes and 33 seconds, followed by stage separation, second stage ignition, and fairing deployment. The boostback burn, where the first stage reorients and fires its engines to begin the journey back to the drone ship, will occur at T plus 3 minutes. You watch all of it. At MECO plus stage separation, when the first stage has separated cleanly and the second stage engine, a single Merlin vacuum, ignites to carry the payload to orbit, the firing room's tone changes. Not loudly. These are not people who cheer at milestones during a live mission, but a quality of breath releases, a fraction of held tension resolving, because MECO and stage separation are among the highest risk events of the ascent, and they have passed nominally. The first stage begins its entry burn, and then its landing burn, slowing from hypersonic to subsonic, to hovering above the drone ship on a column of engine exhaust, and then with a gentleness that never fails to seem impossible given what preceded it, lands. 4 legs deploy. The vehicle is upright on the deck of Course I Still Love You, 630 kilometers out in the Atlantic, 8.5 minutes after it left the ground. The firing room marks this with a single collective exhale. The second stage continues to orbit. You will monitor it through the engine cutoff and payload deployment before the mission is formally declared a success. But here now, you allow yourself to feel the specific sensation of a launch day that has gone nominally. Not the wild elation of someone who has never done this before, but the quiet, settled, deeply earned satisfaction of a person who has spent years learning exactly how difficult this is, and who understands in a way that only repetition and near miss and 2 a.m. anomaly reviews can teach, what it means that it worked. You remove your headset, you place it on the console, you open your eyes, and the first thing you check is not the ceiling, it is the clock, and this time, the number on the clock means something different than it did at 4:47 this morning. It means the vehicle is in orbit. It means 60 satellites are deploying into their operational altitude. It means the drone ship is sailing back toward Cape Canaveral with a reusable first stage, standing upright on its deck, ready to fly again. And it means that somewhere in the accumulated memory of 14 launches and 2 scrubs and 1 abort at T-4 seconds, there is now one more data point for the mission that went right. One more piece of evidence that the distance between the Earth and orbit, measured in difficulty and risk and the vigilance of everyone in this room, is exactly as large as it needs to be. Exactly as large as the work required to cross it.